Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb. I'm a retired field grade Army officer and Army Ranger, airborne. And I am literally running for governor of Virginia right here. If you are like many folks, when a COVID-19 struck, your spin classes, days at the gym, rock climbing, and everything else went on hold until after the pandemic, and you probably picked up quite a few COVID pounds. And at least anecdotally, I would dare to speculate that if you decided to take a break from anything requiring any kind of discipline like academic study or even religious devotion, you were going to experience the same steep learning curve trying to come back after the pandemic to be back on your game like you were over a year ago. Unless you are some kind of Superman or Wonder Woman when it comes to your faith or academics or sports. Because the science says that you have degraded over time through inactivity. It happens, it's science. But with regard to exercise and COVID-19, it finds as many as 80% experiencing only asymptomatic signs of infection. There are some reports that even though you may not have even noticed being infected, as a pretty efficient respiratory tract infection that has all of the indicators of being like a Ranger virus, it may well have left some long-lasting damage to your cardio workout with scarred lung tissue and long-term damage. So we decided to do a little checkup from the neck up, conduct a little experiment today on Roosevelt Island, and as a professional, I'm going to provide the standard warning to not attempt this if you are not a professional. If you're somebody who needs a training program and a support group to train for a 5K, a 10K, or a half marathon, don't even think about trying this on your own. Maybe get a little group and do it together and do beers after or whatever. I've not performed any exercise at all in over a year, and definitely have not gone on any runs during the pandemic. I am overweight, smoke 2 packs of Marlboro Cowboy Killers every day. So trail running where you might die and not be discovered for days until somebody finds your body or carcass is probably not advised. But like I said, I am a professional, and so we didn't have to really worry about that. And as you can see demonstrated in this constant stream video, now we didn't die or even find a need to take a knee, pause, and try to recover our breath. The late Reverend Samuel DeWitt Proctor, or my silent Sam, Uncle Sam, former president of Virginia Union, a good friend of my father, and part of my dad's Alamo task force, last line defense to get me into the ministry. He used to have a great story about a guy who says, now that the wagon is out there, who is going to bring the wagon back? So let's talk a little bit about that road ahead. Where do we go from here? How do we climb out of this pandemic pit? Get out of the pandemonium? What is the plan? Well, first of all, when you look at the pathology of a less than 5% infectious pathogen that had defied the probability of emerging as an infectious disease by simply emerging from the coronavirus family of viruses, any ideas about herd immunity, mass vaccinations, as currently configured, facial coverings, stay-at-home orders, locking down social distance, or any concept of infectious contagious disease is simply the wrong answer. And it has been the wrong answer for over a year. And just look at the body count if you need proof. That's a no-brainer. Since the days of the Assyrians, biological warfare has always been surreptitiously deployed, and it works, affording the attacker the advantage of deniability while they exploit the stupidity of their adversaries. And people are all too willing to be stupid for the strangest reasons. And so the first step is to stop denying what the science actually says inside the reports about this pathogen. And if you need it spelled out, just look at the very first large sample size racial context study back in February 2020, where the World Health Organization stated in plain Sesame Street simple English that COVID-19 is not an infectious disease. You decide you don't want to believe them, look at every other large sample size tracer contact study. And the math says the same thing, but they don't spell it out, make it easy for you. First step in problem solving is always to admit that you have a freaking problem. First step in winning a fight is to identify exactly who or what it is you have to fight and defeat. Okay, so once we have sufficiently defeated the enemy that is ourselves, our ignorance, our greed, our fears, our passions, and our politics, that allowed our attackers to take advantage of our disarray and division just as efficiently as the mosquitoes claimed over 22,000 lives during the construction of the Panama Canal, while scientists, engineers, and indigenous people dug in to defend themselves against the fictitious enemy they desired in bad air. We need to come to grips with the facts as even presented in the case studies, numerous case studies on COVID-19 that nobody decided to read. That the infections conform to the pattern that would exist in the deployment of a conventional smoke grenade. Just that easy. And with a less than 5% infectious pathogen, as has been validated in study after study, that biological weapon attack can only occur in a venue that is indoors. You need at least 1 hour of exposure to this pathogen to become infected. And unless you are in an environment outdoors that has natural or man-made obstacles to prevent that concentration of pathogen from simply dispersing and blowing away, just eliminating the opportunity for it to deliver that infectious dose, every infection event has to be in an indoor environment, as we have seen in nursing homes, schools, churches, and even factories. So we need to stop looking for some sick guy with the fever walking in the door, because even if that guy is infected with COVID-19, he's less than 5% infectious. And the likelihood that he is going to infect anyone else is infinitesimally low. Something that somebody should have noticed when people started talking about zoonotic evolution, because it would have been the same thing. It would have been a dead end. We need to start looking for, to be exact, the terrorists coming in to deploy the smoke grenades, setting off the fuse, initiating that 6-second burn, and walking away. But still, the question in every after-action review, looking at how your budgeted performance strayed so far from your actuals, there is always the question as to how exactly that might have happened. Did Ralph Northam, the nation's only physician, know any of this? He most certainly did. Since last year, he has been evading the sheriff and the United States Marshal to be held accountable in court. But that could only have happened if, as we continue to see partisan passion close the eyes of the members of his party. And just look at the body count, because we have over 10,000, majority of whom are the elderly, who everyone knew were a risk from the very beginning. And Ralph Northam is still trying to evade the sheriff and the United States Marshal, and trying to kill the actions in court. But don't get too happy if you are not a Democrat or progressive, because Pete Snyder, Amanda Chase, Kurt Koch, and Republican leadership have known all about this from the very beginning and chose to remain silent for whatever reason. They didn't even sound an objection when the declaration for a communicable disease, a public health threat, was declared too early, back on February 7, 2020, or even when the Democrats boasted about it in the Richmond Free Press on March 23, 2020. How could they not notice that? But not only did they choose to ignore these facts, while schools, businesses, and churches were closed, and while lives were lost, their supporters also allowed it. What, to win an election? So everyone needs to get beyond pointing fingers and engage in some self-reflection, some introspection as to how each and every one of us permitted this to happen. Not just messing with ourselves, changing our lives, but also being responsible for the lives of others who are no longer here. Recall there are over 10,000 fatalities in Virginia and over 500,000 nationwide. Throwing caution to the wind is not what an intelligent person would do. Or is that setting the bar too high? And
So here is the truth. My name is Major Mike Webb. And by God, I am running for governor of Virginia. I ask every Virginian and every American true to, like the motto of the infantry, follow me, and we shall overcome. Honest. And y'all come back now. Yeah.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
And y'all come back now. Yeah.